Hey there, greetings everybody, and welcome here to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So here we are for the episode called This Week, in which we chronologicalize the contents of this channel for the week. Usually I stay within the channel for the week, but sometimes we talk a little bit about what's going to be happening and a little bit in the future. Maybe we might go over something that happened that might have been a little bit confusing from past episodes, but we haven't got any of that this week, so we're going to go right into it. So the first episode, of course, is this one. The next one up will be Ben's album challenge. Now, Ben has given me an album that I owned before on vinyl, and I actually believe I did own it on CD at one point too, and I'm not quite sure where it went or what happened to it, but anyways, I did listen to it quite a bit in the days, and I will be listening to it for tonight's episode again. It's called The Six Wives of King Henry VIII. It's from Rick Wakeman. Lots of stuff on this album. Be very interesting listen to, I think, so I'm hoping you'll join me for that one. The next show up that usually comes out during the week is called Monday Night Look Back at a Classic Rock Album. So this week I have chosen this album, Peter Gabriel 4, some people call it, or Security. I prefer Security, that's what I've always known it as, so that's what I'll be referring to it as. So this album came out, I believe it came out in 81, I think. I think it was 81 or 82. No, it was 82. It was on Geffen Records. So we'll be doing the cover. We'll be covering this album on our look back at a classic rock album. Really good album. One of my favorites. Probably in my top 2 or 3 favorite Gabriel albums. So there you go. The next one up is called, it's a new show that we'll be doing called What's New. For those of you who follow the channel, you know that I do What's News, and they're usually one-offs here and there and that, but I wanted to be more consistent with it. So what I've done is I've moved metal to the Tuesday night spot, and it will alternate with this episode of this show called What's New. So What's New will feature a new album that came out in 2023. I try to do them fairly quickly after they come out, but I haven't been able to do that this year because I haven't organized it properly. But now we're going to be a little bit more organized, and the band we're going to be doing for this week's episode will be called Solstice. The album came out early in January, so I'm a little behind on it, but we're going to catch up this time. Almost certain of that. So, and then the opposite week we will have metal again, which will come out next week. So they're going to alternate those two. On Wednesday night, we then have our favorites, which I've been doing fairly large volume stuff lately. A lot of 25s, and yeah, I've done 4 25s in a row. So we're going to tone it down a little bit and do a song ranking episode, which I've done a few of now. I quite like it, but I haven't gotten into it as much as I probably should have or would like to have. Anyways, I've chosen an album that I quite love a lot. It's one of my favorite heavy metal albums of all time, and I still listen to it quite a bit. We're talking about Screaming for Vengeance by Judas Priest. I think I was motivated because of the Judas Priest metal episode last week, and this album I like. There's no bad, well, there's a couple of weaker tracks, but not necessarily any bad tracks on the album, and so we'll be ranking those songs from my least favorite to my most favorite on the album. This is one of those albums too that it's the deep cuts that really dominate the scene for that album. So after that, we are going back to Thursday nights, and it'll be the Forward Champion this week, and actually Forward Champion will take over this spot full time, and we'll be here weekly now. Seems to be too long of a wait between the episodes. People kind of lose a little bit of an interest, so I'm going to try and do this episode every week, and we'll be back with the Forward Champion for Thursday. Currently, I believe it's a tie between, I haven't looked in a couple days, but I think it was a tie between between Crime of the Century by Supertramp. Sorry, the Screaming for Vengeance is still in my head, and the other album, which was Trespass by Genesis. So this week we will have a new challenger, but still not quite sure who's going to end up being the champion. If it comes down to it, if they're both dead tied, I will probably do what they do in boxing. If you don't knock the champ out, you don't get to replace them. That's likely the way I might go with it. Or I might just use the old proverbial coin toss, but that's kind of cheesy, so I'm not really sure. Maybe I'll just make the decision myself based on my own vote, but I don't like to do that. So we'll see what happens. We'll leave it right till the end. The next show that comes out, usually during the week, is on Friday night, Monster Hits. And this week we're doing 1975. Lots of good stuff here. We're starting to get into that era where you're getting some fairly lengthy tracks too. You don't normally get that on a Monster Hits show. It's usually those short radio friendly things, but there's a couple on this one that are a little longer than most. And so that is it for the scheduled weekly shows. I will be doing what's the difference at some point during the week. I will put it in somewhere, and the two I've chosen for this are Hotter Than Hell and Rock and Roll Over from Kiss. What's the difference between the two albums? We'll be doing that. I think at this point in time, that's probably it for this week's episodes. I am still I've got a couple of other things coming up that I want to do. I want to do another album runs, I guess you would call it, but the first two I did, one was my original bands that I listened to and the runs that I went through with them, and then the second one was the second set of album bands that I got into in the early 80s, and I did runs for them. And now I'm going to do bands I've gotten into since there's about 5 or 6 bands that I started to get heavily into in the early part of this century, like 2005, 2006, and I'm going to do the runs from those bands, and then I may do a part B with bands that continue along that way as well. And next month, of course, there's going to be the series, which is I think we're going to call it now I had it down here and now I don't remember what it was. Anyways, we'll be doing a series. It's kind of a battle of the bands. It's going to be prog bands, but obscure prog bands. I did write a title down for it, but I can't remember what it is right offhand. But we will be doing that starting September 1st. There'll be 32 bands in this battle, and it'll end up culminating in the finals, which should be interesting. Most of these bands I've not heard of. There's still quite a few in here I have at least heard of, and some of them I've actually listened to. So it should be an interesting battle. If nothing else, it's going to bring a lot of obscure prog bands to the surface. Okay, so that is it for the episode of this week. I hope that chronologized everything that was going to be going on. Please make any comments that you may have for this at the bottom. Hit the like button. It's to let me know you've liked it anyways, and then subscribe here on the side. It's much appreciated, and we will be back again next week with another episode of This Week. So take care and have yourself a good day. Bye.